All right, how's it going, my magnificent sons of bitches? Now, you know, a lot of hype, but this is YouTube. This is YouTube today, at least. Anyways, uh, has come out recently about the newest Joker movie, Joker a Folie Deux, or at least that's what I call it. Ultimately, I haven't seen it, so I know that a bunch of people have been having little emotional breakdowns. And I think that the little emotional breakdowns that this red tube, the grifters that have taken over YouTube, they're not completely organic. You know what I'm saying? Most of the people that come on here and put the little 15 to 20-second advertisements on your YouTube videos while they sit there and give you mostly a bunch of irrelevant opinions that really are kind of using secular logic. They're like, I don't like this because I think it's bad, and this is how it's bad, this is why I think it's bad. But there's no reasoning behind it. There's no real depth behind a lot of the shit that they say. They're just flinging shit on the wall and praying for it to stick. And whenever the Joker came out, this is the perfect fucking example of what YouTube, the metamorphosis that YouTubers were going to. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of these people will sit there and say, take the star of, say, a Snow White or a Little Mermaid, and then they'll put the shit all over YouTube. You know what I'm saying? And, all of them do this. You'll see 15 different fucking, thumbnails of the Snow White girl, Rachel Ziegler, so much so that it's like I don't even know what the fuck she done. Why do you got so much hate for her? So I just started following her. It's just like, oh, okay, I get it. The grifters, it's not like this hasn't been done to me before, you know, where everybody just jumps on board the hate wagon and you're like, hey, what the fuck did I do? And, they don't really have to give you any reason. It's all just secular logic. And, it's one of the reasons why, I don't really do videos like I used to. You know what I'm saying? Because it's almost kind of a waste. You put in time and effort, and whenever I was doing the video editing, or whenever I would do the research to put together a quality video or had some sort of vision, that takes a lot of fucking time. And for people to come back and get your shit flagged down, well, you know what? Now I don't want to put as much effort into it. I'll just go ahead and download this my Mobizen app, and I'll just play the game the way that the grifters play the game, and just dumb down my content to the lowest common denominator, and put out good facts and reasons. Maybe essentially we can go ahead and raise the bar just a little bit on this platform that has been taken over by mostly grifters and shills sitting there just having, like I said, superficial reactions to each other, or superficial reactions to their own fucking products, and going ahead and making frivolous content on the internet and expecting to make a living off of it. I don't put any commercials in my shit because I don't expect, everybody has an opinion. And you know what? How I get rewarded is by you commenting on this video, giving your thoughts, going ahead and we can have a civilized discussion. That's basically what I consider payment. Other than that, I'm going to be a productive member of society. Tomorrow I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to go ahead, work an 8-hour shift, and actually put value somewhere. Maybe not as much as my great-great-grandfather did, but I'm going to put some kind of value out in society. I'm not trying to sit here and accumulate a bunch of people just to go ahead and give me money and, give me, sub to my Patreon and follow me so I can go ahead and make more content that's going to actually contribute nothing to your life. I'm not that fucking grandioso. However, with this being said, and after I went on my tirade of all the superficial YouTubers on here, most of the superficial YouTubers have, been triggered by this Joker affiliate, which is what I call it. Uh, again. Uh, and it really butthurt their little simpish feelings. You know what I'm saying? And I think actually, because you know, to be fair to the movie, probably to be fair to them, to justify their little complaints while they're sitting here crying about this movie. I don't know if this movie actually should have been the first movie. Well, either one of them should have been called Joker at all. If I was making this movie and the marketing was honest, I probably would have called them Fleck, which is for Arthur Fleck, which was the actual character's name. But with that being said, everything else goes. There are those movies throughout history that kind of define, your generation. You have Of Mice and Men. You have movies like The Godfather. Particularly for like Generation X. It was pretty much movies like Fight Club and The Matrix. And then you have a lot of the soy boy stuff like for the millennials that was like Avatar. That being said, Joker Folie Deux could probably be that generational movie that defines the generation's mindset at the time, because it's not that far off. So, I think that Joker Folie Deux maybe a really it's a really intriguing concept by Todd Phillips. Now I know a lot of people are sitting here crying and it's like, oh, he can't make a second movie and we feel ripped and Todd Phillips is this, and so now he's being overly demonized. They're saying that Warner should basically take away his rights to exist pretty much, and how this is going to actually destroy the Marvel product. I don't believe that that's going to be the case at all. I think that everybody's well aware that James Gunn is going to deliver his own brand, regardless whether I like it or not, regardless if I think it's too dark and sophomoric, which I find that most of the movies that are coming out now are a little bit too dark. And the good thing about James Gunn and the Guardians of the Galaxy is, yeah, they were kind of, they had your drama in it, but they always had that fun feel to them. And so, I'm hoping for the best, but I'm not holding up a high bar for James Gunn to deliver in DC, because we see that, really right now in the entertainment industry as a whole, they don't really hold the bar. It's just like YouTube. Like I said before, they don't really hold the bar high for you people. They really don't. So, with that being said, I actually think, because first off, the first Joker sucked. It absolutely, to believe that as many people sit there, all these soy boys, most of them Batman fans, and it was complete cash grab. I could have told you watching that fucking movie, watching part one, I'm like, yeah, this guy's not the Joker. He's not even really that smart. He's a handicapped motherfucker. This guy is not a criminal mastermind. And if you watch the fucking movie, well, you just sit there and see, some kind of... And I think that that's one of the things that appealed to a lot of the people that bought into the Joker. Well, I won't say a lot of the people. The reason why the Joker was pushed out to be so popular is, one, it was essentially a State Department, what do you call, social engineering project, is what it was. I don't think that it was as popular as a lot of people will say. They'll say, oh, it made over $1 billion, and oh, it was this, and everybody. I didn't like it. And most of the people that I know that are intellectually honest, most of the people that I know and talk to in real life, really didn't like the movie. The plot was boring. It was actually, basically plagiarized for the most part. So if you've seen some of the 1980 films like Taxi Driver, and King of Comedies, well, this movie was totally ripped off of those movies. To add on to that, the story was based on, the time period in the 1980s during the recessions caused mainly by what do they call that? The Great New Deal of FDR, and, as a person that understands economics, a little bit, you know, we can tell that that fucking recession wasn't, uh, it wasn't the fault of conservative policies. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the fault of Reaganomics. If anything, Reaganomics is what expanded the economy to give you the strongest, the more stronger economy in the 1990s. Reagan delivered, and got us out of that recession. Otherwise, we would have ended up into a depression, and more than likely, if the country didn't change from Republicans to from Democrats to Republicans in the late '60s, going into the '70s, then the United States would have ended up into depression, and they would have essentially ended up into World War III. That's always how the Democrats got us into all these global wars. And you can see right now how they're doing their part to try and go ahead and collapse the dollar while simultaneously trying to get us into World War III. The strategies never change. However, with that being said, the Joker was a psychological operation to go ahead and get it into the minds of complete and utter anarchy raining down at Washington, D.C. The movie had came up before the events of January the 6th, 2020, whenever they decided they were going to rig an election. So, I mean, it was setting up the psychological operation that is known as January the 6th, that for most part, people just think that these events are goofy at this point in time. You're looking at a society, media is trying to put themselves in the place of like a Reichstag or a Nazi party or a communist revolution where the state had all the confidence and the, I guess, what you would consider the more moral religious institutes, they were considered the powers at the time, holding down people, what they called the aristocracy. However, we don't have any aristocracy anymore in positions of power. So you're going to have to, you're not going to get the same kind of results. The people that were, fighting to go ahead and change out the aristocracy had suffered actual, literal discriminations, famines, and whatever kind of calamities that was putting onto them that was put onto them by that aristocracy. So the state is having this issue. I mean, for the first part, most people, like, I think even like you go back and look at January the trials for January the 20th, right? Or January 6th, 2020. And the confidence in the media was only 23%. But that's not 23% of the 300 million people that live in the United States. That's 23 million. That's 23% of the 20 million people that were watching the January 6th trials, because nobody else would take a damn poll or a survey saying, hey, do you trust this? A few trolls might, but it's not going to be enough to influence it. So only 23% trusted the official narrative of the state whenever it goes to January 6th. But you had these psychological operations, and you had the internet being changed out. How many of you here on YouTube, myself included, lost their main account? You know what I'm saying? Or lost a account at that point in time. At this point in time in 2020, I lost my YouTube account, I lost my Facebook account, and I lost multiple Twitter accounts by this point in time. So I'm looking at going through three YouTube accounts that I've had. Uh, I've went through I've went through you know six Twitter accounts at the time, and I've went through you know two or three Facebooks, I think. So I meant this is why the traffic isn't as organic as it used to be. This is why people tell you that the internet is dead, the dead internet theory. And so now all you got is shills and grifters sitting there competing for any kind of influence that they could get from anybody. If you don't believe me, you can go on a video and leave a comment on a video. You know, make it make it halfway articulate. You can't just go over there and say, oh, I believe that all gays and transes needs to be thrown into which I'll do on Twitter, but I don't, that's different. I'm trying to go ahead and elicit a stupid reaction because most of the stuff on X is absolutely 110% just fucking just stupidity. But with that being said, you can't really do that on YouTube. You got to be a little bit measured. So you can't sit there and say we need to throw homosexuals in the volcano. You got to be a little bit more measured because then people will say, you know what, this guy's probably trolling. But if you leave a well enough comment, you'll probably get a reply from somebody. Why? Because these content creators have to reply to you because they've got to keep you coming back. And if they just go ahead and leave you cold, then 9 times out of 10, people ain't going to go back to your channel and watch it. This is why you don't get a lot of growth on people like Sam Cedar, Kyle Kalinske, a lot of the lower end leftists like the serfs and shit. This is why their, viewers and membership stay stagnant. There's no real interaction in their comment section. This is why, for like at least, more high profile platforms, you get a comment here or there. You know what I'm saying? They got to get interaction going in their comment section. Be no different than me. If you leave a comment on this video, I'm probably, depending on how stupid it is, I'll probably go ahead and reply if it's something that I can reply to. Generally, I may like it if it's a good comment. If I think it's stupidity, if you're just like ma baby Ruth or something, then I'm like, yeah, okay, I fucking reply to that. What the fuck am I supposed to say? But with that being said, this was a grifting strategy. The Joker one was a complete and utter unadulterated. And I watched Joker 1. I didn't watch Joker Folie, Deux because Joker 1 sucked. So why would I go ahead and watch a movie that ultimately, to me personally, did pretty bad damage to a character that had already been defined at a much better capacity by Heath Ledger and The Dark Knight. I'm not going to go ahead and watch a lower, dumbed down product version of it. Or, I don't really have much interest, and I don't really have a lot of respect for a lot of the people that put praise in this movie because ultimately it wasn't a good movie. If I'm going to go ahead and watch your channel for you to give an honest review, I expect an honest review. And you didn't get any honest reviews. The movie just wasn't that great. You were pushing an agenda, and so this is why I label you mostly grifters here now on YouTube. Just, it is what it is. This is why I don't really traffic a lot of independent channels anymore. I just don't have as much interest in it anymore. And so it's just like, it is what it is. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and tell you why I didn't like Joker. Now, all the simps, this is what they were marketing it as. And I could tell you right now that, they fooled a lot of these MG Toe guys. They fooled a lot of these guys who were kind of like hopeless romantics, I guess is what you would say. A lot of the guys that didn't have a lot of, I guess, self esteem. Most of these guys were gamers. This is why you always get the internet thoughts going out and putting on Yu Gi Oh costumes. Like these women really like Yu Gi Oh! Oh my god, she wants to be with that virgin that's gonna eat, play, eat, fucking pizza pockets and drink Diet Dew and watch wrestling. That's our dream guy. You know what I'm saying? No. You know what I'm saying? They're doing that. They're putting on all that shit to get a fucking audience. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that there's nothing against it, but, to me it's kind of cheap. That's why they're not as good at video games. And that's why they don't know as much about the fucking sports. And that's why when you go and watch their content, that's kind of cringe. If you actually listen to it and weren't looking at their tits. So, with that being said, um, you know, this is the way I feel like the Joker was. It just wasn't a good movie at all. First off, the plot dragged on for far too long. Uh, they say that Joaquin Phoenix, delivered an epic performance. I guess he wasn't bad. I think he's mostly overrated as an actor. I can't put it totally. I don't really like a lot of Joaquin Phoenix's movies. And, partially, maybe that he's a good actor, but his characters just don't resonate for some reason. They're just a little bit off. I think that they're a little bit too emotional. You know what I'm saying? It goes to an extreme. So, first off, you're in a time period that's the 1980s during the Reagan recession that none of you motherfuckers that watch this movie could ever resonate with. Most of you didn't grow up in the 80s, and most of you people probably wouldn't know what it would be like to be without the internet or the fucking smartphones. You got Apple Watches or somebody constantly being there to tell you and having all this shit. That was the 80s. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot going on. You cannot resonate with the fucking Joker in 2020, 2019 when the movie came out. You cannot resonate with the fucking recession back in the 80s. Alright? You're not suffering the same kind of, I guess, prejudice, discriminations, you know, I guess biases. You didn't have any of that stuff coming up through the 2000s. You didn't have the fucking struggles that were going on at this point in time back in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers who lived in the 80s understand exactly how good you you kids got it today. You really do. You see the shit with the unsolved mysteries where kids would go. You'd be outside playing. One of your buddies would come up missing. He'd be on unsolved mysteries. All right, it's just the way it was. It was Dodge City. It was pretty rough, and so taking the plot back into the 80s, right, and with such a I guess boring, dull character that really didn't have. I mean, it was very few times in the movie that it was actually entertaining. And the one thing about the midget trying to unlock the door and he can't reach it, and then he goes, "You know what? I'll go ahead and let you go." Then he scares the midget. That was the funniest part of the movie. As far as I'm concerned, that was the only funny part. But you're watching like this 2.5 hour, 3 hour long movie, and granted, they sit there and say you didn't understand the movie. You didn't understand the movie. No, I totally understand the movie. I understand that. Yeah, he was in his own self. A lot of his stuff was in his head. He really wasn't doing a lot of this stuff, and he was basically and it's really kind of hard to tell exactly if he was a schizophrenic or exactly what his mental condition was, because clearly the motherfucker had multiple mental conditions. You know what I'm saying? But there yet again, it's a problem with the consistency of the storytelling. This guy would have delusions. He would laugh uncontrollably whenever he got nervous. He was definitely on multiple drugs. And they, of course, try to throw some more shade on Reagan-style conservatism. And like I said, ultimately, this Joker here, that all of these gamer guys, all these gamer geeks and stuff like that, these big time gamer geeks that are manly men that draw comic books of themselves and want to be this alpha male that all these females are pining to be with and stuff, that are going to fight the fucking Civil War that I see on YouTube day after day after day after day, all these guys were sitting here and they were resonating with this Joker. They could see themselves living vicariously through this Joker, which really kind of took me aback because, as far as what I could tell, this Joker was trans. Or, at maximum, he was a trans Joker, and at minimum, he was definitely a feminine, homosexual, LGBTQ Joker. So I'm sure that this confused the fuck out of Todd Phillips as well. You know what I'm saying? That this Joker was designed, for the most part, to be kind of like a love letter to the LGBTQ. Now, would I watch this movie? No. Did I think it sucked? Absolutely. Would I have cared if it was marketed as a fucking LGBTQ movie for LGBTQ people? I mean, they got homosexual movies that are out right now that are specifically geared for, homosexual people. They don't really do well in theaters. They've tried to push them out. Am I over there boycotting them? No, I don't care. Because, I totally understand that, uh, you're not going to be able to push it on a mainstream market. But if there's a market out there that you can market to, well, then I'm not going to stop the motherfucker from making a movie. I may say, hey, you know what? There may not be a big market for it, so you may want to do a low budget film. But, it is what it is. If you feel like you can make money off of a market, then, knock yourself out. But that's exactly what the Joker was. He was kind of a transsexual, homosexual Joker that just so happened to murder 3 white guys on a train, and then the city saw them as privileged white males, and ultimately got behind him and supported him because he was the homosexual LGBTQ transgender victim. And so he gets invited to go on a show that of a guy that he totally, and this is like where I say this is just basically plagiarized off of the Kings of Comedy and Taxi Driver. But supposedly, he goes in this show and then he shoots what would be essentially your Johnny Carson, your David Letterman, your Jay Leno, as you know him today, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Craig Ferguson type of host there on TV. And of course, this is symbolizing him, killing people, all his detractors and stuff that has an issue with him going out and basically performing vigilante LGBTQ justice, which essentially gets everybody to go ahead, put on makeup or put on these makeup masks, because that's what it is. The Joker, he's putting on makeup, and it's like I said, so he's, it inspires them all to go ahead and overthrow the system and whatnot. And like I said, you had a whole bunch of gamer geeks that got on board and will claim that this movie is some sort of epic, was some sort of epic, monumental movie that they believed that did he win an Oscar or one of those awards, one of those lame ass awards? I don't know. I think he might have, but they believed that it deserved an Oscar. So that brings us full circle to the Joker Folie, which is where we're at right now. Um, and mind you, I didn't go see it because why the fuck would I go see a movie over a character that I thought wasn't done right, anyways? So basically, you know, Todd Phillips goes ahead and puts in. I mean, most of this movie, from what I'm to understand, and like I said, this is based on the reviews that I've seen and the mental breakdowns that I've seen here on the internet. This movie is a repeat of a lot of the other movies. The first half of the movie is just them going over what the events of Joker Part 1. You know what I'm saying? And, they have an issue of the way that Lee Quinn, which is Harley Quinn, I assume, Lady Gaga's character, who I think was probably a brilliant choice in the long run. And it's not like, and I'm not sitting there saying anything about Lady Gaga. What I will say is that Lady Gaga is, considered pretty much of a strong feminist, more of a masculine type of woman among women, with her songs and stuff like that. And, a lot of people, there's videos out here, I'm sure you could type in Lady Gaga. A lot of people consider Lady Gaga as a transgender. Now, I'm not sitting there saying that she is a transgender, but I'm saying that you could find videos, people, on the internet calling her. So I think that if you're going to have a trans Joker, which I honestly believe Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is a trans Joker, well, then you're going to need a strong masculine female presence across from her that could even be confused as being a trans, even if it is on the internet, with Lady Gaga. So I think that Lady Gaga was actually the perfect choice for Harley Quinn. Subsequently, the Joker gets violated, I guess, in some way in prison, and ultimately kind of giving the subtle hint that the Joker was kind of that direction anyways. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a very mentally stable person even from the first one. We know that he had a lot of problems. We know he had a lot of problems with delusions. If you go and watch the first movie and you see the end of it, you can tell he is completely flamboyant. He is completely embraced his new identity, what he identifies. He identified as the Joker. You see what I'm saying? And this is where they're having the mental breakdown. See, I saw that in the movie. It wasn't the Joker. He identified as the Joker. Just like a lot of the people that are transgenders, they identify as that sex of their choice. So, like whenever I watched the movie, I'm like, okay, yeah, well, for the most part, it doesn't matter if you're homosexual or transgender. I don't care. The whole issue is that you're not having to go through all the fucking bullshit that the fucking people had to go through in the 80s. And so, it just doesn't resonate very well with this society. And while you're trying to recreate, I think that this is one of the things that kills The Watchmen, is because The Watchmen took place in the 80s. And I think that The Watchmen sucked. I think it had good characters. I just think that the movie overall kind of sucked. Is because whenever you try to recreate the 80s, and I think that when you're talking about left-leaning liberal Democrats that ultimately moved here from Texas and took over California, essentially, Now they're all moving back to Texas, trying to take this place back over. What you're essentially ending up getting is their catharsis that ultimately they didn't destroy the world in the 1980s like they wanted to. And so, it's kind of weird. And so, this is what this kind of feels like to a degree. And whenever you go look at movies like Taxi Driver by Martin Scorsese and The King of Comedy, and you can go back, I think that there's one, it wasn't The Day After Tomorrow. It was like, I forget what it was, but it was you know, made back in the 80s. The Day After is what it was called. It was The Day After. And the movie was made back in the 1980s, and it had some pretty big names like Jason Robart and Steve Guttenberg, and they were, basically survivors of a nuclear apocalypse that was going to happen under Reagan if he got into office. Well, that never happened. And in fact, our relations with the Eastern countries were never better than they were under Nixon and Reagan. So this is what you get out of Hollywood over and over. It's almost like a chemical imbalance. And like I said, to me, it just was not that entertaining. It just didn't communicate anything that was gonna, because if you're gonna be a drama, then be a drama. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna be a murder mystery, be a murder mystery. If you're gonna be, a crime drama, then be a crime drama. If you're gonna be horror, then be horror. Stop being an amalgamation of, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and make this movie for everybody. Well, if you try to make a movie for everybody, essentially what you're going to end up making is a movie for nobody. And so, yeah, this movie has a lot of layers to it. I think that Joker had a lot of layers to it. And I think ultimately what Todd Phillips did with Joker Folie Deux was wrap up the Joker properly. And essentially went ahead and told the ones that were claiming, the people that didn't like the first Joker, they would claim, you didn't like it because you didn't understand the movie. No, we totally understand the movie, and the sheer fact that you're not liking Joker Folie Deux is due to the fact that you didn't understand the first Joker movie, that everybody else who didn't like the Joker movie totally understood. That's why they, and, that's for the ones that weren't grifting, that weren't trying to push a narrative. The ones that weren't saying, oh, it's attached to revolutions in Venezuela and revolutions in here, and now we're going to go ahead and be the Joker January 6 people, and then try to sit there and label Trumpers as this movement here. And even if you were going to sit there and label me the fucking Joker, please make sure it's the Heath Ledger Joker, not the transgender, homoerotic Joaquin Phoenix Joker. That's all I asked. All right? That's all I ask. So, yeah, I know I went on a bit of a tirade. I went on a 40-minute rant here about YouTube. And basically to give my thoughts on Joker Folie Deux. I believe that Joker Folie Deux can wrap up this, kind of be the movie that defines this generation. This generation identifies as whatever the fuck that they want to. They sit there and they're entitled and they'll go ahead and just identify, as whatever it is. And this is just the Joker going ahead and wrapping up the whole thing. The movie should have been called Arthur Fleck. But Arthur Fleck identified as the Joker, so they named it the Joker. And the people that are, watched this movie were totally upset that they couldn't understand that there's no way that some chemically imbalanced goofball that could barely function in society, that was, getting his ass kicked for most of the movie that was weak and only killed like 3 people, and you know had really to little no no real criminal intelligence whatsoever, and was just basically clumsy and uh for the most part inept and incompetent, that that was homoerotic and feminine, that this guy wasn't the Joker. He never was the Joker. And the people who understood the Joker movie understood that this motherfucker was never the Joker. So yeah, it's I put this one out there. I put the series out there with the Batman movie 2022 that people pretend is a good movie whenever it's a complete waste of fucking time. Don't waste your time on these 3 hour fucking projects. If it takes you 3 hours to go ahead and, try and tell a fucking story, then 9 times out of 10, on the very rare occasion, is that movie going to be good, particularly like a comic book movie. The only one that comes into mind that was kind of long, and it was like longer than 2 hours, was Deadpool and Wolverine. That was a solid movie. It was a good movie. It was a lot longer, but even like your Infinity Wars and your End Games, I didn't really care that much for. Just entirely too long. I think that most of them were resume films just to say that they had worked on that project. And they really kind of failed to deliver a satisfying ending. And I feel like the Joker may not have, a Joker Folie Deux may not have delivered a satisfying ending for its audience, but it sure as fuck delivered a satisfying result here on the people that watch your channels, that sit there and watched you praise one of the worst movies, of 2019, and pretend like it was just this epic masterpiece. It certainly provided people like me with a little entertainment. So I would like to sit there and say thank you, Todd Phillips. You have given me copious amounts for this week of entertainment, of watching these shills have a mental breakdown and trying to reinvent the wheel and explain why Joker was a masterpiece, but Joker Folie Deux was a big disappointment and letdown. And the audience ain't going to take it anymore, because I've heard this shit before, and you know what? They're going to sit back on their computers, and the next thing that you give them to go ahead and produce, or to go ahead, they're going to sit there and do the same thing. So, anyways, you people tell me what you think. Like, sub, do the shit the internet tells me to do to get over. And for now, I'm out.